Hello and welcome to Chronological Clone Wars, presented by the Podawakens. My name is Jordan. Rewatching the Clone Wars, my first time in chronological order, and his first time ever, Logan. How are you today, Logan?
Doing well. We were just talking about how fast this year is going. Feels like it was just May the 4th. Now it's almost June the 4th. So it's
And if you're listening, it's like
you're
almost July
confused.
4th.
I know. You're probably like, what the hell is he talking about? But yeah, no, it's this. I guess the older you get, the quicker years go by. That's what they always said, right? They always
Yeah.
warned us that that's what happened. But I think it's because you get so caught up in work that you're pretty much trapped in work for 8 hours a day. So it makes the
Oh, no, but you
weekdays.
were trapped in school, too, for the same
I
amount of hours.
guess, but I had more fun at school. Now that I think that sounds so strange, but especially if you're listening and you're still in school or college,
Especially if
I
you're
would.
listening and you're at Logan's work and you're
Right,
like, what the hell? I thought we
yeah,
were having fun.
right. We're having fun. We're having fun, but I think in school, stakes are less, right? Like you're,
Yeah,
I don't
just
know.
your whole future depends on it.
Well, I mean, I will.
You
I
know what I've heard this somewhere. I forget where it was. I don't know if it was a podcast or like somebody. I think it may have been at work. We were talking about it or something. But the reason why they say that, like, why you can kind of tell relatively.
Good
The reason
morning.
you can tell that time is relative, right, is because um, years felt like they took longer as a kid. Because if you're 10, a whole year is 1/10 of your life.
That's true.
While a whole year, when you're like now at 30 or whatever, is 1/30th of your life. So it's going by faster because to you, you've been around so much longer. A year is nothing to you, but as a
That's true.
kid, a year is like your whole thing. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's a really good point. I never thought of it like that.
yeah,
Yeah, I think too. I feel like it's kind of like that. You don't know where you're going when you're younger, kind of thing. It's kind of like it takes longer to get to because you're always like, I want to be older when I don't want to
yeah,
do
yeah.
this, and you don't really have a direction. But whereas you're an adult, you're like, all right, so here's the end game, right? Here's where I got to go. Like I'm waiting until my next vacation or they do
Endgame
that.
is Marvel. We're on a Star Wars
Okay, yeah, sorry about that. Yeah.
podcast. Yeah. So if you wanted to talk about our midlife crises that we are having, you came to the right spot. Okay, we are going to be talking about season 4, episode 18, Crisis on Naboo, which wraps up the Obi-Wan Kenobi undercover arc that we had started. And then we are going to jump over to another arc here, which is an Asajj Ventress arc. So episode 19, Massacre, and episode 20, Bounty, are the episodes that we are talking about today. And that is near the end of season 4. I have some fun notes about those when we get to them as well. But I guess let's start with Crisis on Naboo, which was directed by Danny Keller, written by Brent Friedman, and it aired February 10th, 2012 on Cartoon Network still at this point. And the Disney Plus synopsis is Dooku and his hunters attempt to kidnap the Chancellor. All right, Logan. So last week we had like 3 episodes building up to this, or maybe 2 episodes building up to this, with Obi-Wan undercover. What did you think of the conclusion of this arc?
It was good. Yeah, I mean I love Naboo, and I think anything that it's always political when it goes to Naboo, and I think because the Senate and everything is kind of wrapped and revolves around what happens there, and
Yeah, Palpatine's from Naboo,
right. So I
and
feel
so is Padme. So yeah,
yeah, anytime that happens, I feel the story's going to get. Uh, I don't know. They always do a better job, I think, on Naboo as far as progressing a storyline, just because of how integral they play a part in the
mm-hmm.
whole world of Star Wars. So, yeah, everything revolves around Naboo, and I enjoyed this. It was kind of strange because we had watched it, a week ago, and then this kind of that ending.
Yeah, getting
So,
back into it. Yeah, that
yeah,
was my bad. I'll take the blame on that one.
as you
But
should. Yeah, as you should.
yeah, sorry. Uh, so this episode, Obi-Wan is tasked as being the sniper, right? And Dooku tells Cad Bane, like, keep an eye on Hardeen here because he doesn't trust him. And that, of course, is who Obi-Wan, as we are catching up on what happened last week. He is Rocco Hardeen, and he's got the face changer. He's got the voice changing droid in his throat. And Palpatine is visiting his home planet of Naboo, and he's supposed to give a speech there, and all these people are there. And you know who else shows up here? One of my favorite characters, Co Bibble. This is the guy. If nobody knows who I'm talking about, I've been bringing up quite a lot, but I've been a big Co Bibble fan for a while. This is the guy with the awesome beard in episode 1 that is one of Padme's consultants on the political stuff, and he has this really great voice, and he's always like, negotiations, we've lost all communication, right? And he's the one that they make send the thing, and he's like, you must contact me, when they're trying to do the trick on getting Padme to reply while they're on Tatooine and stuff. But he is one of my favorites. And you know what? I was watching an episode of Poirot, the British show, and I mention this all the time on here. But I was watching that recently, and recently I mean like 5 years ago, and noticed that this actor looked really familiar, and I looked him up, and it was Co Bibble, the guy who plays Co Bibble, in like the 80s or early 90s, playing this role, and I was like, oh, that's where I know him from. So he is a great character. I just loved seeing him in animation, and anytime I see him, I'm like, yeah, he's one of my favorite characters for really just the way he delivers lines in episode 1, which is probably silly, but I really enjoy him.
Yeah, no, I think it's always fun though. I think with Clone Wars that we get, and it continues on, and like as we continue on in the arc, and kind of into the next arc, we get into like bounty hunters, we get into Maul's reappearance, like we get, I don't know, it's really cool because it's you get these characters coming back from live action to animated, and then the way that I love that the voice actors can embody what the actual actors did too. Like there's a bunch of actors that take on the roles that Ewan McGregor's not doing anymore, or Christian about Christian Eriksen. Christian's taken on, and I don't know. It's pretty cool to see these characters come back into kind of the fold, and they're portrayed by a different person that's voicing them.
Yeah, and a way that we are. This really didn't start back then, but since Disney has taken over, and since we've kind of gotten to the Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau stuff, where we're starting to get characters from the books even, and from the comics into live action and into animation as well. And some of these characters start going back and forth, talking about a character like Black Chrysanthemum, right? Who was not, who was in comics and then shows up in Book of Boba Fett. And then you have Cobb Vanth, who, was in a book that came out in like 2015 and he was in like one chapter of that book. And then he appears in The Mandalorian season 2. And just the way that they've been doing that, and then bringing characters from animation like Ahsoka into live action, and then Cad Bane into live action, and getting these characters where it really does feel like one big universe. So when you watch the animated shows, you feel like anybody can pop up. And now I'm starting to feel that in the live action as well. Before, it kind of felt more separated, where you're like, does all of this stuff with like, I'll give you an example with this show, Clone Wars, right? Where you're like, okay, I watch episode 2, then I watch all the Clone Wars, then I watch episode 3, and guess what? No mention of Ahsoka, none of this stuff going on. And then we never see her in episodes 4, 5, 6. So did that stuff really count? Does it really matter? Well, now we get to see Ahsoka interacting with Luke Skywalker in Book of Boba Fett, and you're like, the walls of making this stuff feel separated are now coming down, and it's great. And this not really so much this set of episodes, but next week we have a big one with that we'll talk about. One thing I thought was very interesting is Palpatine mentions that Naboo joined the Republic 847 years ago. That's a long time. That's a long time. And it took one guy, probably like 50 years, to bring all of that down. So, F Palpatine. He also is complaining about the security and how all the Jedi have to follow him and how blah, blah, blah. Now, this is what I want to ask you, Logan. He is, of course, Dooku's master. He is the one with the big plan. So is he upset? Like, is he really airing his frustrations out? Like, I really don't need all this security because he thinks like he's untouchable, is how he's passing it off. But do you think he's really actually upset that like this kind of foils the plan that we're trying to do here that I'm having Dooku do? Dooku do.
I think a little bit of both. It's interesting to me because it's like every time I watch Palpatine, you're going, because you don't get a lot of him in the movies. Like you don't get a ton of him unless he's interacting with Anakin. So you don't get the. But I was sitting there thinking about this, and these episodes really brought it. It was like Palpatine again. Every time I watch him in Clone Wars, I'm like, man, he's got to be very careful. And I couldn't imagine doing this, like being a double agent kind of thing, where you're trying to act like nothing's going on and you're playing the dark side, but you also have to remain loyal to the Republic, so they trust you. And it's like, at what point do you get mixed up and accidentally make a decision, or kind of like, but again, I think because he's kind of able to sway the Jedi a little bit, and I think there's kind of that idea where he's able to at least convince them and trick them, and deceive. I think that's ultimately what I think. It's more of him being mad that it'll foil the plans, because he seems to be very reactionary. Like he's very, oh well, this is gonna spoil it. I don't know. I feel like while Palpatine is smart, I do feel like there's times where he gets a little frustrated because the Republic's doing things that are foiling his plans, which is why he needs Anakin, I think.
Yeah, definitely. So Obi-Wan is able to contact Mace Windu finally, and he gives him info on the plan. Mace Windu is like, "Hey, thank God you're alive." He was worried about Obi-Wan being caught or being killed because he hadn't made contact in days, and with this, we have them kind of get a distraction going on. Fireworks get loaded. I'm not sure if the fireworks part of the plan or something here, but fireworks go, and I thought the fireworks, I don't know if you noticed this, kind of looked like the opening crawl. Did you see this? You had fireworks on the side,
Yeah.
and then there was like this yellow middle that was going up like the
Yeah.
opening crawl. I thought that was pretty neat. And the mushroom bounty hunter, I forget his name, but he looks like a mushroom, opens up the shield, and their tech is kind of like, they don't have like face changing stuff like Obi-Wan has. Instead, what they've done, or they don't even have costumes. It's like this hologram projection of what they want people to see. And for our benefit, it kind of glitches in and out so we can see, okay, who's the real person, who's the fake person. I don't think it's doing that every time they walk around, so that would not be well executed at all. So Anakin goes up and tries to face the bounty hunter. He actually loses. Obi-Wan shoots his jetpack with his, stun bolt from his sniper position. But one of the bounty hunters uses the disguise thing to turn the senator into the guard, like to turn Palpatine. Sorry, not the senator. He is a chancellor at this point. Turns him into a guard, and then puts the changing thing on another one of the bounty hunters to make him look like Palpatine. So that way they look like they're carrying him to safety, and they're following the wrong Palpatine, while somebody else picks up, I think it's Malo Aval, who picks up Palpatine, who's dressed as a guard. Kind of confusing, not in the sense of watching it, but trying to describe this. I'm like, how do I say this without sounding crazy?
It was like I don't know. Like when they start shape shifting and they start turning into other characters at times. There's times too where like when Obi-Wan, like you're like, oh shoot, I forgot Obi-Wan's not.
Yeah,
He's
Obi-Wan's not
already.
Obi-Wan.
Yeah. It's like, whoa, this is confusing.
So Cad Bane and Eval argue while they have Palpatine. They're supposed to meet up with Dooku, who's a no-show. And then Obi-Wan appears and tries to get to the Chancellor. Obi-Wan and Cad Bane fight. Mace and Anakin arrive. And Bane and Eval get arrested, and they learn that Hardeen is Obi-Wan Kenobi. We learn it was Obi-Wan's decision not to tell Anakin. I'm pretty sure we knew that, but Anakin learns this at this point. Anakin was like, I should have been told. The council should have trusted me. And he's like, it was actually my choice. And Anakin has some interesting things that really, as we get closer to Revenge of the Sith, we start seeding this stuff a little bit more, right? How many lies have I been told by the council? And then he tells Obi-Wan as well, how do you know that you have the full truth? And I thought that was a very interesting way as well. That gets Obi-Wan's gears going, though, and he goes back to the like perch that he was at, and they find out Dooku was listening in on them the whole time. So that's why he no-showed. Palpatine asks Anakin, like, if it had been his plan. This is, again, how Palpatine is very sneaky, right? Oh, that's a very great plan. That must have been yours, Anakin. He's like, no, actually, I wasn't even told about it. And then Palpatine again sowing the discontent with, I thought the Jedi didn't keep secrets and worked as a team. Just all things that will be probably playing in Anakin's head as he continues down this path. Palpatine and Anakin are supposed to be meeting like this dinner in the banquet hall, and this is where Dooku is actually waiting for him. It's a trap. It's set up to be a trap in the sense that Anakin's like, hey, Padme didn't tell me that there was a banquet, and Palpatine's like, oh, she probably didn't know, or she didn't want to tell you. If you didn't know he's a Sith Lord, you would think this guy's the biggest idiot in the world. Like, he's just like, I don't need security. Then he gets almost kidnapped. Then he's like, I'm just going to go in this dark hallway to the banquet hall and run into this trap. Like, how is nobody picking up on this?
And he walks in, it's dark, and nobody's there.
Yes.
There's no noise. It's kind of like, this big
You
banquet.
would hear the banquet from down the hall, you know? Like,
and then as he sees Dooku, he's kind of like, no, this isn't good, probably.
oh, yeah, and when Anakin and Dooku are fighting, we see Palpatine watching intently, and he's got, like, this evil glint in his eye.
Yeah.
And it's like, Anakin, just turn and look at him real quick. You'll see that he's loving this.
Yep.
Dooku uses Force Lightning after Anakin was, like, choking him. Not force choking him, just actually choking him. Obi-Wan arrives and gets the Chancellor while Anakin faces Dooku for round 2. But Dooku escapes, and the Chancellor is saved. And he says, Anakin says, as long as I live, no harm will come to you. Which I thought was very interesting. Because it's true, right? He becomes his second hand, and he is Palpatine's, like, guy. And he protects him. But guess what? When Vader is dying, he is the reason, like, when Vader dies, Palpatine dies. So it is true in the sense of, as long as I live, no harm will come to you. Because once Anakin starts, picking him up and he gets electrocuted and throws him down the shaft, Anakin is dying as well at the same time. So I just thought this was really cool. I don't know if that was purposeful, probably. But really cool thought there. But yeah, that's the end of that arc. And the next 4 episodes, the next 2 that we're going to talk, are written by Katie Lucas. And Massacre was directed by Stuart Lee, and Bounty was directed by Kyle Dunleavy. These premiered February 24th and March 2nd on the Cartoon Network. Let's start with Massacre. So this is an episode that what was I going to say with this? This is an episode that, while this and Bounty both feature Asajj, they're not really like an arc, I would say. They both have very different episode styles. So Massacre, Count Dooku launches an all-out droid attack on Asajj Ventress. So, Asajj is talking to Mother Talzin, and Dooku sends Grievous, wipe the witches out, all of them. This is another great callback, Logan, to Phantom Menace, when Palpatine is telling either Darth Maul or the Trade Federation, wipe them out, all of them, talking about the Naboo stuff. I think he's talking to the Trade Federation. So just that Dooku is using the same terms that his master was using is just very cool. This is going to come back around in another show as well. I'm going to say it right now. So this episode takes place at the same time as Tales of the Empire episode 1. And you will hear Grievous say this line, wipe them out, all of them. So it's kind of like this line is going, multiple layers here with that. But this episode takes place at the same time, or like after this episode takes place. So it's around that same time where they're attacking Dathomir, and it's the droids. So this is kind of what I was alluding to a couple weeks ago. I don't know if I said it on the show or if I was just talking to you. But what I was saying, I was thinking about squeezing a Tales of the Empire episode in here. It would have been that one like around this time. But again, I didn't want to really start throwing things really loosey-goosey. I think we're just going to stick with Clone Wars on chronological Clone Wars to make it easy. But we see a Night Sister baptism for Asajj as she is leaving her past behind of being evil and moving on to becoming a Night Sister. What was your thoughts here on this Asajj turn here? Ventress going from... She's kind of been on this arc, right? Once Dooku kind of betrayed her, she's kind of been in this anti-hero arc, but now she is really forsaking the Sith and kind of turning more towards, working with the Night Sisters. And we kind of see that again next episode when she does something very good that's Jedi-esque, right?
Yeah, I think it made sense. And then I was kind of wondering if this was the route they would take, just because of she's basically been casted away by the Sith. Basically, you got to kill Ventress because eventually she's going to want to overthrow. It's the same way with all the Sith, where it's like, no, you got to kill them because they're going to come after my job. Which is a funny way to think because there's only 2 of them usually, and it seems that they're willing to train up and make their apprentice very powerful, but they don't think of the consequences of eventually they're just going to want to overthrow because they're going to have differences. And so because Ventress was outcasted, I was like, okay, well, she's got to have some kind of part or role. And it's always interesting to me too when they cast away a Sith or a Jedi, because they still have the powers to be very powerful in that sense. But yeah, no, I was really excited when I was like, all right, she's gonna go back to the Night Sisters.
Yes. So Asajj is reborn, a sister of the night, as Mother Talzin says. But right at this time come the Separatists and the droids attack. We get to see Mother Talzin do some like cool green globe magic, is what I call it. It's like this big green ball and it's just like shooting lightning out or whatever it's doing. She enters like this secret chamber and asks for an elder in there to revive the fallen sisters. And the spell awakens the fallen. So this might add some more context to something like Ahsoka, where the Night Sisters did the same thing with the Stormtroopers, right? So that's something that we were familiar with in animation that some people maybe watching just the live action stuff was like, oh, this is a weird turn, maybe. But now it's like really like seeding in the that stuff. A tank comes and starts burning down the land. Talzin asks these 2 sisters to get like this little orb, and when she gets it, she opens up. It's a lock of Dooku's hair. So she's obsessed, I guess you would say. But she makes like this voodoo doll of Dooku, and he starts to get like boils on his face because she's like putting him in the fire. And Dooku has to call Grievous and like, find Mother Talzin, like I'm dying here. And so he leaves the ship to go face Asajj at first. Asajj is going to get shot after she holds off Grievous for a bit. And then the army of the dead start to attack Grievous. This is when Dooku actually calls. And tells him to stop Talzin so it can save him and to follow the green mist. Grievous breaks in and kills the Elder, and Talzin escapes, and the army of the dead falls. And Talzin arrives in smoke to tell Asajj, this chapter is over. You have your own path to follow now. So, really, the one thing I think the Night Sisters need to work on, Logan, is their spells to make sure no green trail follows the spell that leads right to where you are. I think that is kind of the one thing that they got to work on.
Yeah, and have they not realized? I guess they don't see enough TV over there on Dathomir, because zombies never work. You know, like they never work. Like they work to an extent.
I would say I think what it helps is that it's like fodder while the other people are able to attack.
Yeah.
But yeah, it wasn't great. Not a great plan. Dathomir kind of falls here, and Talzin escapes. Asajj has to go her own way now.
But I do like that, almost of the passing of the torch to, because basically Asajj becomes the Night Sister she eventually, I'm assuming, becomes one of the leaders, if not,
Oh, so you think she becomes like Mother Ventress?
Yeah, I feel like she's, I don't know, she feels like on that path, and because the other Night Sisters are falling constantly, because they clearly don't know how to get away from the green mist. Like I think
her and Talzin are like one of the last of the Night Sisters at this point.
It would be cool to see kind of a deeper story, maybe like a short series of the Night Sisters and kind of their influence on different people, because they you have these things, like I didn't know this until Clone Wars, but you have these extraterrestrial, almost like different beings in this world that have such a bigger influence on just like the Force and everything.
Yeah,
I feel like they just sit above it all. Like they sit in an untouchable realm, and then once the Jedi and Sith figure it out, they get upset about it, and they're like, "Wait a minute, this is above our power. We need to eliminate it," because I feel like it can't coexist with the Force. Like I feel like they're above the Force, and they use different means to get to what they want. I don't know. It seems very removed, I guess.
You know what's funny is I believe the Night Sisters' first appearance was actually in a book. When was their first appearance? I think it was like in the either one of the Ewok films, I believe, or in one of the books that took place like that came out not long after the original trilogy, is like their first appearance, I believe. So they've been around for a while, but it's one of those things that, like you said, if you're not a 1994 book called The Courtship of Princess Leia is where the Night Sisters were first created. But there was a sorceress, Charal, from the TV movie Ewoks Battle of Endor, which were retconned into a Night Sisters in the illustrated Star Wars universe, setting the Force Witch's first canonical appearances in 1985. So they've been around a while, but it's one of those things, like you said, that you don't really know until you kind of watch or do this other ancillary material, because the movies focus so much on Jedi versus Sith. You don't realize there's other Force users that have a part to play. And I think that's one thing that's really cool about like the Night Sisters, is that they have like this whole different thing of the Force. They can use it. They have their own ways about it, but they're also witches and they have other spells. It's all very interesting stuff.
It's very dark magic.
The next episode is called Bounty, Season 4, Episode 20, and it was an abandoned Asajj Ventress joins Boba Fett on an assignment. So we got some cool people teaming up here. We got Asajj teaming up with Bosk as she meets him into a bar. Also, she kills the first person that comes up to her in a bar, by the way.
And they just look at her like, whoa.
Similar to Obi-Wan. Like, do you remember in A New Hope, Obi-Wan just chops off this guy's arm in the bar?
Right. It's kind of like like it had very. It also felt very like Han Solo when Han sits across from. Is it Greedo? Who's he?
Greedo and shoots him.
Yeah, it's like, oh, okay. All right. I love that though when they establish somebody's a badass by just like they walk in and immediately just start wiping people out.
Yes.
Star Wars has a good tendency. It's always a bar too. Don't go to bars when you're in this
I
universe.
saw a funny meme too that was like Obi-Wan. It was like Obi-Wan, whose best friend became part of like a tyrannical empire. Quote, you'll never find a more hive of wretched scum and villainy than this cantina. It's like, dude, you know way worse people than who's in this bar, but that's his thought process, that the
Yeah,
people in this bar are worse than even like Palpatine and Darth Vader.
right. Because essentially all the ones that are, it just feels like anybody hanging out in bars are the bounty hunters. Like,
Yes. Yeah. They're looking
what
for
what's that
jobs.
about? Right.
So Boss comes up and actually talks to her, and he introduces her to Boba Fett. And she's like, this is your boss? Like this kid? But they do enlist Asajj for a mission, and they are given a mission to protect a tram for it to get to its destination from this one like monarch on this planet. He kind of looks like a chicken. They get attacked on the tram with other people trying to get this crate, and when they open up the crate, they see it's a girl, and she's being sold as a bride to one of the royal members here. And when she delivers the crate, they open it up and Boba's inside, and we learn that she had actually taken the girl, and one of the people that was trying to save her was the brother, right? And she does give her to the brother, and they do ride off, and Asajj has a heart, apparently, right? She realizes that was too far to go here, selling this child bride into marriage and probably an awful life. Uh, again, for a kids show, they're dealing with some very heavy themes here.
Mail order brides in Star Wars. Didn't know that was a thing. But yeah, no, I think it's cool to see Asajj in a different light. And as we get further in to next week's episode, it really takes a change from Asajj to join up. But yeah, this one's interesting. They do tackle a lot of really slavery. They tackle selling women, almost like a slave trade kind of thing, and I don't know, young marriage and all sorts of different weird things. But that's a pretty deep. I love that Boba Fett too. Like he just seems, as a kid, obviously he screws up a ton, but Boba Fett's a lot less badass than I. As you learn more about Boba Fett, Boba Fett's getting a lot of trouble. He's gotten in a lot of tough spots where I feel like Din Djarin's a lot better at avoiding those tough spots.
Yeah, this is one again that I covered on the road to Book of Boba Fett. Before we covered Book of Boba Fett, my cousin and I went through every Boba Fett appearance, and this is one of them. So I remembered this episode pretty well, even though that was like 3 years ago that I watched all those. But like, this is one that I was like, oh, this is the episode that it is. All right, cool. And I was able to, I already kind of knew everything how it was going to go and all that. But it is fun just to kind of see Asajj working with some of these different people as she's kind of becoming a bounty hunter. Maybe we don't know what her path is. Logan thinks she'll become Mother Ventress, and Mother Talzin said, "Find your own path," and she's out there killing people in bars and releasing child brides. So we don't know what she's really up to. But we do see her again next week, where we'll kind of talk about 2 episodes that I think a lot of people might put pretty highly because it features a return of a very famous character and some people's favorite character. I'm just gonna say Darth Maul. We and of course have been building up to this. Savage Opress and Mother Talzin were trying to find Maul. A few weeks ago, probably like
Yeah.
last season at this point, season 3, and that's what we're building to is finding Maul and bringing him back, and that's next week's episodes, which are episodes 21 and 22 of season 4, which are called Brothers and Revenge. Now, I know you've already seen these because we're about to record these, but Logan, are you excited to see Darth Maul again?
I am. He's an intriguing character because he doesn't talk a whole lot, and he's
In the
got
movies, yeah.
right. Yeah, it's weird. So it's like, okay, so how's that going to work? Because you don't really hear him speak a whole ton. What's he been up to? Where has he been? Why hasn't he reemerged and quicker than why is he out in space somewhere just kind of hanging out? Where's does he have a body left? Like what's going on? So no, I'm excited. My brother and I used to play Darth Maul all the time. Like we'd always wanted to be Darth Maul. It's the dual saber for me. Like I think that was what was so cool, and his face was so cool. The yellow eyes that was like almost demonic. Yeah, no, I think Maul's probably a lot of our people in our generation's favorite, just because of just that air of, I guess. What would you say? He's very mythical almost.
Um,
Not mythical. What would you call him? I
like
guess
legendary.
no, because he's so. What is it? Like he's so hard to pinpoint. Like he's so hard to guess.
I don't
So,
know, mystical,
yeah, I guess mystical would be more. Yeah.
mysterious.
Yes,
Um,
mysterious.
yeah, so that's next week. Brothers and Revenge as we wrap up season 4 already, and then we'll start looking into season 5, which um is the last of the long seasons. And even then it's a little shorter. It's 20 episodes in season 5, and then the rest have shorter than that. So we are making our way through here as we are almost done Clone Wars, really. I know it's season wise, you're like, oh, we're 4 out of 7. But when we talk about episode wise, we are really, really close. And just a few more recording sessions left for Logan and I. And yeah, it's exciting. And then at some point, we'll take a break and come back with the Bad Batch binge is what we're calling it. Already got the logo made up and everything. We're rocking. We're gonna stick with our chronological theme. We're gonna go Bad Batch instead of Rebels. I think as somebody that just finished Bad Batch, there's a lot of stuff that wraps up Clone Wars stories in that show that I'm like, oh yeah, this will make sense to do. So really excited for that. Some special characters will appear, which will be fun. All right, so you can contact us at podawakens for all of our feedback on any social media or podawakens@gmail.com. Have a great rest of your week. We'll catch you next time when we talk Brothers and Revenge.